My viewers are my husband Chris, my friend Tammy, and my son Isaiah. I sat in the chiropractor's office yet again with yet another son. And a few weeks prior to this, I had had my 13-year-old son in there, and after a few appointments, we decided that we better get an MRI. And what this MRI showed us was that my son had spondylolisthesis, which is a fracture in the back with slippage. And so here I sit again with my 18-year-old son, wondering if perhaps this is, just a sprained muscle, or if this was perhaps the same thing. After a few sessions, we decided that we better just rule out the possibility that this could even remotely be close to what my 13-year-old son had. And so we get the MRI, and unfortunately we found out that my 18-year-old son did in fact have the same diagnosis as my 13-year-old. A fluke, maybe, hereditary to some degree, possible, but what I did realize and what God did show me is that perhaps my life has been out of focus and overextended for the last 15 years. Overextending is a family, a community, spiritual, and a physical problem with a lot of families. I believe as a wife, as a mother, a student, and a chauffeur that my life has been overextended and out of focus. And that overextension has led to spiritual, the mind, body, and spirit being out of focus in my life. With the rise of stress disorders, physical ailments, and marriage problems, I believe that we, as a community and as a society, need to look at how we are overextending our lives and whether the good and the bad are in proportion to what God wants for our lives. Today we're going to focus on 3 points. One, that overextending leads to problems in our mind, body, and spirit. 2, that our families are missing out on time together and growth together. And 3, the focusing on Christ is and should be our first and foremost in our lives. So we're going to start with the first point, the mind, body, and the spirit. I believe that we should be protecting each of those areas in our lives. Rosenfeld's 2004 article said that more children today are being diagnosed with mental illnesses, which leads me to say that the mind is definitely being affected by this. In a 2010 article by the Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, it said that every year 3.5 million kids under age 14 are diagnosed with stress injuries related to overextending and overusing their bodies at a young age. In an article by Ludens in 2011, they said that youth group and involvement in church actually helps students in their schoolwork and in social problems and a lot of other areas in our families. So I don't believe that we can afford not to look at the spiritual side of how overextending our lives is affecting our kids. Now to our second point, our children are missing out when we're overscheduled in a lot of different areas. David Elkins' 2003 article in Psychology Today gave 3 points. 1, unstructured playtime, which allows them to find out what they want, what they enjoy. And 2, families. When we're sitting down for supper, when we're talking with one another, it helps the family, and it will decrease the amount of divorce in our society. And number 3, in self-awareness. When we allow our kids to sit down and draw or write, anything that's creative, it helps them to find out what they're good at, what they enjoy, and where they want to go in life. To our third point, 1 Corinthians 10:31 says that we should do all things for the glory of God. I ask, are we doing everything for the glory of God? Are we petitioning God and asking what we should do? Or are we doing it because society says we should? In a 2008 study by the University of Minnesota, they gave 3 things that were causing a lot of divorce, and that is lack of communication, growing apart, and lack of attention to one another. Psalms 127 says that our family should be a blessing, so we should take the time to find the blessings in our family. Hebrews 10:25 says that we are to fellowship with one another. Are we spending time with family? Are we spending time with extended family? Are we in youth group and small groups? Are we focusing on these things? 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20 says that we are to honor God with our bodies. Is this healthy for our bodies? Is God, being honored through the activities that we're doing? And then we have Deuteronomy 6:5, which says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength or your mind. Honestly, I can say that I haven't. I've been out of focus, but that's not what God called me to do. Our children need us. They need time to be kids. They need time to see their parents loving each other. And they need time to rest their bodies and time to love God more than anything, more than any sport or activity that they're in. I ask you to stop overextending your life and your kids' lives. Decrease the burnout, the depression, and the physical problems by putting God first. Don't look back on life as I have and wonder if you've done things right or wrong. Give God the time that He deserves, and you'll find that your life and your family's life isn't overextended.
What was it supposed to be? What's the time supposed to be?